Right, good morning, everybody. Time we got started. First of all, welcome everybody, including the members of the public. A little statement. In case of fire alarm, the exit doors and the buildings, exit the doors and buildings and make your way to the far end of the car park. Toilets are outside the door, down the corridor and to the right. Water is available on the mezzanine floor. This is a public meeting and members of the public are welcome to listen to the debate today, but unless registered as a speaker are not able to take part and speak. We are live webcasting today, so can I please remind members to use their microphones and remember to turn them off when not speaking. Right. In terms of how the items are presented, the order for each application is as follows. The case officer will present their report. Any questions from committee? The objector will speak. The supporter will speak, each being able to be asked questions by the committee. The town or parish council representatives will speak. The ward member will speak. Members will be able to question each speaker on points of clarity. At the conclusion of the debate, each application, the members will vote and come to a decision. Okay, at this point, I would like the officers and committee members to introduce themselves. I'll start with myself. I'm Councillor Terry Southcott, member for Bridgestow Ward and currently Vice Chair, but chairing this meeting today.
Head left, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. My name is Darren White. I'm the Head of Democratic Services for the Council and I'm the Administrator of this meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Fairbairn. I'm Head of Legal Services and Monitoring Officer for the Council.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Moody, Tavistock North Ward Member.
I'm Neil Jory. I'm the member for Tamar Ford Ward.
I'm Tony Leach, Oakhampton North.
Alistair Cunningham, Buckland Monacorum Ward.
Steve Guthrie, Drew Stainton Ward.
Caroline Mott, Bridgestow Ward.
Sam Wakeham, Hatherley Ward.
Paul Vashon, Oakhampton South Ward, substituting for Councillor Cheadle.
Bryony Hanlon, and I'm Senior Planning Officer for the Council.
Jacqueline Houselander, Development Management Lead for West Devon and the Lead Officer for this meeting.
Graham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Graham Lawrence. I'm the Heritage Senior Planner, West Devon and South Hams.
Bryony. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. As alluded to earlier on, we've got an apology for absence from Councillor Cheadle, for whom Councillor Vashon is substituting. Thank you.
Does anybody have any interest to declare for this, any item on this agenda? There are no items of urgent business. Confirmation of the minutes for the 18th of March. Has everybody seen them and happy with them? Show of hands, please, to accept.
That's carried for approval of the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
I will now hand over to the legal officer for a statement.
Thank you, Chair. The Chairman's previously agreed that I would read out a statement in respect of how planning decisions are made, principally for the benefit of any members of the public who may be joining us for the first time. I'll keep it brief, but essentially the committee's starting point is a requirement to have regard to the policies in the development plan. In this case, the development plan is the joint local plan and any made neighbourhood plan, and also to have regard to any other material planning considerations. Material planning considerations being those matters that are concerned with the use and development of land in the public interest. Anything that doesn't serve that purpose is irrelevant and the committee will not consider it. Finally, the committee's decision will be made in accordance with the development plan unless the material considerations suggest otherwise. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay. The first application, number 3921/24 full. I will hand over now to the planning officer for her presentation.
Okay, so this application is for a battery energy storage system, and it's sited within the red line shown on the plan. So we're just outside the Hatchmore Industrial Estate in Hatherley. So this is just the aerial view. You've got the A3072 running through the plan, and the dwellings at Moorview to the north. So this is standing to the north of the site, looking south. So if you take in the green and yellow sign on the right-hand side, that's often used as a point of reference in some of the plans from the applicant. So this shows the grass verge where the battery energy storage system is proposed to be sited. This is the view looking east. And this is the view looking west. So you've just got the sign on the left-hand side of the page. This is the site layout plan, just showing where the battery units will be going. They sit on a concrete plinth and they are enclosed by a fence. This just shows you the elevation. So you've got existing at the bottom of the page and proposed at the top. So you've got the battery energy storage system on the left, and the right-hand side encloses a sort of access area around the system. You've got a weld mesh fence and then a wooden fence behind it. And this shows you the view from the southeast, so that just gives you an idea of context with those advertising boards. And then this is what it will look like with the fence enclosing the cabinets. This shows you the visibility display. This was produced by the applicant to confirm that there won't be any infrastructure within the visibility display as required by highways. So what that means is when vehicles leave the industrial estate, they'll be able to look right and left, and that view will be unobstructed. So the system contributes to the management of the overall energy supply. Environmental health, don't have any concerns about noise. Fire safety is to be managed through a pre-commencement condition. So what that means is the applicant won't be able to do anything until the fire service are happy with what they've proposed. The visual impact is to be controlled through condition, and all of the equipment will be removed from the site once the use has ceased. And on this basis, we've recommended conditional approval.
Thank you very much. Anybody, any questions for the officer at this point?
When it says that equipment to be removed from the site once the use has ceased, what's the longevity potentially of?
So the applicant hasn't specified how long that they think the kit will last, but they're on the call, so you can ask them that question in their section.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Right, we have a speaker now for the objection, Mr. Paul Richardson. Like to come up and sit by a microphone? I think you've been here before, haven't you? Your 3 minutes will start once you start your presentation. Speak clearly into the microphone, please.
This application concerns a battery which is intended to provide assistance to the grid, particularly during times of high demand. A battery works by having stored energy. If you raise the voltage of the battery with respect to the grid, then the energy will flow into the grid. If you lower the voltage of the battery, then the energy will flow in the opposite direction. The battery will change the voltage that's on the grid. The only thing static on our grid is the 50 hertz frequency. The voltage will vary and the current will vary. I have my first slide. Thank you. This is a demonstration of a battery being charged on the grid. It's showing changes in current, changes in voltage are happening at the same time. Particularly, you can notice after midnight that there's a square interval there where there is battery charging clearly going on at that location. This is from a monitored substation courtesy of National Grid. Next slide. This shows the position in the southwest. Since spring of 2023, we have been in a position of generating more energy than we consume. We have 3 times surplus energy in the southwest. This does not apply to the rest of the country. If you look at the Southwest Peninsula map at the top, you will see that although there is demand of 890 megawatts, we are generating almost all of that, 816 megawatts. We're still importing 371, but that's not here. That's going into Somerset. We have the surplus. We don't need any further grid stability. We do not have demand. If you look at the lower graph, you will see those green peaks is when we have excess energy, and we are in fact discarding that. We don't use it. Next slide, please. This shows the position of the battery on the grid, pointed out with the arrow at the top. And I have emphasized the long, very long, red 11 kilovolt network, which is mainly what you see as you drive around the countryside. This extends for at least 16 kilometers from beyond where the battery position is intended to be. There is no monitoring on any of that. You cannot tell what is the voltage at the ends of those lines, and there is a risk that the battery can lower that voltage or increase that voltage right down to the end of the line. Next slide, please. This is my own grid monitoring system. You'll see at the top the red area and the bottom the red area. Those are defined by statute, and those are the voltage ranges in which the grid must be maintained. No measuring is done at the end of the line. And on my last slide, that's the result of not having the monitoring. You actually get the grid crashing because voltage has gone outside those limits and generation gets switched off. Thank you.
Slight overrun, but we'll let you away with that. Anybody, any questions? Mr. Guthrie.
Hi, thanks for that. I'm not an expert in it by any means in this, but presumably, or from what I gathered previously, the excess electricity should be able to be sold into a direction that is required. So I thought we were generating excess here and it was going to the southeast. And I don't know if you've got any comment or clarity on that. And my only other question would be, why is a commercial organisation looking at this unless there is a win for them? And from this, it looks like, well, why are you doing that if we've already got plenty? So I'm curious.
Right, let's take the first one. Yes, we are sending excess energy from the southwest to London and the southeast. They have very little generation there, and they would like the energy from this area. But when that energy generation or storage is attached to the distribution grid, we have to pay for the network upgrades by NGED in our region in order to transfer that energy through to the distribution grid. One of the main pinch points for that is a grid supply point at the tiny village of Alverdiscot in North Devon, and that is fed by a massive surplus coming in from Cornwall. That's from Indian Queens and then Pyeworthy, just by Holsworthy. And that's where most of our surplus is. The cable network is simply far too small to enable that amount of energy to be transferred. And the response is either that our electricity bills have to escalate tremendously to do that, so that we can pay for that additional infrastructure, or we have economic regeneration in this area and we use the energy which we produce. I can't remember the second part of your question, but I'd like to answer it.
I was talking about, yes, if all of this is complex in terms of cost and they're a commercial enterprise, how are they going to be generating their profit?
It's the tariffs.
If I can interrupt, I think there's some element of speculation going on here. I'm not sure the qualifications of the objector or the speaker are in that field, and ultimately it is a commercial decision by the applicant as to whether or not they wish to pursue a commercial opportunity. So I don't think Mr. Richardson can add very much to some knowledge of the committee. I also said in my little bit at the beginning that the committee was concerned with material considerations. I think a lot of what we've heard is not material to your decision. Thank you.
I'd just like to respond to that, because I think that when there's any planning application here and we're talking about an economic result, then there is some form of relationship to the planning decision.
Right, thank you. I don't think we can push that scenario any further based on what's been said. Councillor Jury.
Thank you. Think of your graphs, and I don't pretend in any way to be any kind of technical expert on this, so I'm struggling to put it all together in my own head. But do I take it from what you said and your very interesting little demonstration with the voltage that the end result of this facility being available is that the voltages along the whole 16-mile stretch that you were talking about could be affected one way or another at any time, depending on what's happening? And what effect would that have on other users who are attached to that line? Is that a sensible question?
Yes, the voltages on the ends of the line will vary according to how much demand is being made. Now, in this area, it's principally farming industry. So we don't get the classic early evening demand peak. If you saw my graphs there is no dip in the voltage as we approach the evening. There's no surge of current either, which would match it. So the times at which the energy is needed by the local people in West Devon does not match what you would expect in the rest of the country, where there is no energy surplus. It's much more likely to be in keeping with milking times, for example. And those are the circumstances where having an extra battery that's way up the line, quite close to where the Hatherley primary substation is, the energy that is being put on and off the grid at Hatherley will cause an effect down the line. So I haven't got monitors in that area at the moment, but in other areas where I can see those voltages, yes, they are dipping down below the mandatory 216.2 volts. And so that is a concern, because although farms may have their own solar panels and wind turbines and whatever else, they are required to detach themselves from the grid if the voltage starts falling below the statutory threshold. In fact, there's a range. They must disconnect themselves by 186 volts, but they can anything from 216 down. So you lose additional generation at that stage, and hence a cascade effect where the voltage dips even further. And that's the concern here, that the ordinary people in the area will find greater fluctuations because the battery control system is unable to get any feedback as to what it's doing at the end of the line.
If I can come back on that, if I understand it, and perhaps this is a more open question, and I might have to ask one of the officers maybe to comment, but isn't that a problem for the electricity suppliers? And coming back to Mr. Fairbairn's point, is that a material planning consideration for us to think about? Who might be able to answer that? Sorry.
It's tricky. I'm not sure where the boundaries of this exist, but it does show us that what is being declared by way of the monitoring and control system of the installation is the most relevant point. It's not how many containers have got batteries and how many containers have got inverters and things like that, but it's whether the applicant is saying, these are the safeguards that I'm taking into account in order to protect the local communities that are around about. And I don't see that in the report.
Can I just come back?
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's my point entirely, I think, as to whether that's our responsibility as a planning committee or the electricity generating supply company's responsibility as the owner and operator of the grid.
Mr. Fairbairn, would you like to comment?
We won't fight. I think you've summed it up very well there, Councillor Jory. I don't think it is this committee's consideration or obligation or responsibility. That's the word. Thank you. Responsibility for that wider, broader issue, for which there is only Mr. Richardson's assertions. So I think it is a matter for the generating company and the power distribution companies. Not a planning consideration for you.
Just reiterate what Mr. Fairbairn has said. You know, whilst it might be an issue, it's an issue for the company and also for the grid.
Councillor Moody.
Just one question. Are you saying that there are no policies within the JLP that cover that sort of consideration?
Correct.
Renewable and low carbon energy?
Well, there was a policy about renewable and low carbon energy. Yes.
Yeah, but
I'm not convinced that this issue that's been
this
raised,
wouldn't come under
No.
DEV 34.
No.
Anybody got any more questions for this gentleman? Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Wallace, I believe you're online.
I am. Thanks very much.
So you're on. You got your 3 minutes. Okay, starting from when you start speaking. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll unfreeze this one. Good morning, all. My name is Ben Wallace. I'm Head of Development for the applicant Amp Clean Energy, and I've been working in energy development for over 20 years across the UK. I'd like to firstly apologise for not being able to attend in person today. We've actually received 130 planning consents for identical battery schemes across the UK, and just attending committees have become quite difficult for me practically. But each project is very important to myself and to the business. I want to thank the planning officer for their thorough work and welcome the recommendation for approval. The UK's target for net zero electricity by 2030 is ambitious. Meeting it means accelerating the deployment of clean, flexible technologies and doing so at scale. To help meet that challenge, Clean Energy is developing 1,000 identical battery box projects across the UK by 2030. And I have a pre-prepared statement, but I think we can talk a lot about what's already gone ahead. But the purpose of a battery box is to help reinforce the network and provide greater security and flexibility. It is not to do the alternative that's set out. I mean, each battery box will provide flexibility services to the local area. And when each box can do that at the very local area because they're connected at low voltage. And then when we have multiple battery boxes within a region, they can work together if needed to do a regional response. And at a national level, they can do a national response. So they can work either individually, locally, or in tandem across a regional or wider area. And we know it works because Clean Energy is already the largest provider of flexibility services to UK power networks, with the largest in 2023, with the second largest in 2024, only beaten by Octopus. And obviously your area is National Grid at the moment, but UK Power Networks is the network operator for over 2 million people in the east of England. So we're already providing huge amounts of flexibility. We've got letters of support and statement from the DNOs, the network operators, whose responsibility is to manage these networks, that what we are doing is beneficial to the networks. It's going to reduce cost, it's going to reduce carbon. So over the lifetime of the project, we expect the scheme to save just shy of 5,000 tonnes of carbon. And it does that by using renewable energy much better. It also does that by reducing the amount of electricity that needs to be moved around the system by connecting into the local area. So I think the benefits are very clear. I think the question for the committee is the impacts or the visual impacts really worse than the benefits? And I think it's quite clear that the benefits here outweigh the negatives. We really hope the committee will support the officer's recommendation and hope they can support a scheme that supports energy security, reduces carbon and builds a more resilient energy future. And obviously happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moody, Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for that. That's very helpful. Just a question I think it was made in the preamble is the lifetime of the unit. Could you just explain that, please?
Yeah, we're expecting these units to have a 30-year lifespan. As you will know from your phones, probably batteries decline in their effectiveness over time. So the cells within the batteries will be replaced probably once in that 30-year cycle in about year 15 or year 16. And
just a question to the officer as well. Would that mean that at that 30-year period, a new application would be required, or this application would still be extant if approved?
So in terms of replacing equipment that was there, like for like, in year 15 or 16, that wouldn't need a planning permission. But if it, at the end of the 30-year period, it would everything would have to be cleared from the site unless they put in a new application.
If it helps, when we replace the cells, the units, the fence, everything would stay the same. They're like cartridges, so you would pull out the cartridge, you'd replace them with another cartridge, so that there wouldn't be any physical change to the development.
I just don't think I'll be around in 30 years' time.
Councillor Vachon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. How is this going to be connected to the grid? Are we talking about trenches and ditches and all sorts of things to get this connected to the nearest available power line?
Yeah, it's going to connect into a substation within the industrial estate. That connection is installed by National Grid Energy Distribution Network, as would any new electrical connection. So they will do that under their statutory powers within the highway, and they would need to make a submission to the highway to do any traffic management. But that is not within our realm. That's undertaken by the statutory undertaker. We are actually a statutory undertaker ourselves, but the cable route is administered by the DNO, the network operator.
Thank you. And how long do you think that would actually take to install?
I would suggest a week, perhaps at most. Our equipment takes 2 weeks to install. The first week is letting the concrete cure. The installation of the equipment takes a day. So it's about 2 weeks in total by the time you've done the fencing and however. I would expect the cable maybe a week at most, but that would be NGED's responsibility.
Thank you.
In fact, you can see if you look at the plan, you can see it says L sub sta, which stands for electricity substation. So the connection will be around roughly there.
Any other questions for this gentleman? Councillor Wakeham.
Can I ask about the safety standards of the battery? Is it British safety standards?
Yeah, there isn't currently a British safety standard. There are international standards and certifications you have to pass through. The concern around batteries is always around thermal runaway, which is when they get very hot. They can cause some fire. Lithium iron phosphate fires are incredibly rare. I don't believe in the UK we've ever had a utility LFP fire. There was one previously in Liverpool, but that was a different chemistry. So they're very, very stringently monitored, recorded, not least by our insurance company, as you might imagine. So they are very, very safe. Yeah. And I think the fire brigade got a condition for a fire risk assessment plan, but they were happy otherwise.
I've got one question for you. The manufacturers of this equipment, is this a British equipment, British system?
The battery system will be made in China, as are 99% of all battery systems. There's a sort of cabinet at the end, which is effectively the substation. That is actually made in the southwest by a company called Knights, but the actual battery equipment will be Chinese.
Second question then: who has control over this system?
Yeah, and it's a point we have labelled over quite significantly. So the way that the system is managed, the manufacturer is unable to connect to that system remotely. It is entirely firewalled, so no one can actually access it other than ourselves.
The manufacturer, so in other words, a foreign country can access the controls for this battery unit?
No, so they can't. So Amclean Energy have total autonomy. So the manufacturer from China could only access it via an internet connection if we allow them to. So we've been, because we're aware of that being a question not just from yourselves but from funders and from government, because this is quite critical infrastructure. So we've got through a long process of making sure that it is entirely secured from the manufacturers being able to enter into it.
Sorry, can I just make a point? Actually, these questions are completely irrelevant to the planning merits or not of this case.
Yeah, I do understand that, but it's something I wanted to get out of my own mind.
It's something we're really very alive to. You will not be the first nor the last to ask that question.
Councillor Moody, do you still wish to make a question?
Just really about how the company monitors the unit. Is it done by sort of automatic telemetry or what?
Yeah, so the system is monitored through a 4G connection, effectively a SIM card. And we monitor that 24 hours a day, where we have a trading desk. So effectively, when it gets very cheap and it's very windy, you import power and you remotely ask your battery to import power. Then when it's not windy, you then export that power. So again, you remotely monitor it. And then if that connection is severed for any reason, it just shuts off.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Wakeham.
Can I ask about the noise levels?
Yeah, they are. They're incredibly quiet. Is actually the takeaway. I've actually recently visited one of our constructed sites with an acoustician to do a real life noise test, and he couldn't do it because he couldn't hear it. So they are very, very quiet, and I'm aware the EHO has not raised any concerns around it.
Sorry, any final questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Wallace. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Right, there's nobody from the town council, so Councillor Kimber, you're next on, please. You have your usual 5 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. It's a bit more scary sitting this side of the desk. So I'd like to start off by thanking Paul Richardson for speaking today. I mean, I'm not qualified to speak on issues related to the national grid and batteries, but he most definitely is, which is the reason I brought it to committee, because I don't understand these things. And listening to the conversation you've been having, I'm worried for my community. I'm worried that these issues will be properly considered because you're not allowed talk about a lot of things. So I am worried about that, but I have 3 additional concerns, but the planning officer may well better clarify some of these points. So I start off by talking about highways. So on the original consultation, Devon County Council recommended that permission be refused. They gave 3 reasons, one of which was this location is close to the traffic and therefore should have been part of a road safety audit. But then a few weeks later, Devon County Council made further comments saying, I've spoken to the road safety officer and the only concern he has is the colour of the box. But the location is still close to the traffic, on the main road to Bude, close to exits from the Moorview housing estate and alongside the exit from the industrial estate. So I would like to know where is the road safety audit when Devon County Council were concerned about it. The second point is fire. I mean, the application does include supporting information on Fire Safety Explainer, which was uploaded before the fire service consultation, but the Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service said, to support this application, a fire safety management plan is required to be developed and submitted to us, which provides sufficient detail to enable us as the Fire and Rescue Service to pass comment. I asked some follow-up questions, and as far as I can tell, the fire service is still waiting on at least 3 points. So the first of these is clarification of fire suppression measures, management of contamination in the event of runoff in the event of a fire or collision with a road vehicle, and thirdly, that the fence was not adequate considering its proximity to the road. So I see these are going to be covered by a condition, but these are some of my friends who are firefighters, so I'm concerned that that is going to be safe. And thirdly, the consultation process. So to make it clear, I'm 100% sure the council posted the site notices correctly, so I'm not disputing that. So these are my photos. So as you can see, the battery box will be located really close to a residential area. The photo on the right, the yellow square on the right is where the battery box will be, and you can see the houses with the yellow box on the left. And I think there's another photo showing a similar scene. You can see here where the battery box is going to be on the left, and you can see how close the homes are on the right. I'm not sure you get a sense of that from the application without a site visit. So I was looking at the West Devon planning website, do I need planning permission page? And it says, there's a question, should I speak to the local community about my proposals? And the answer that West Devon gives is we recommend that applicants and developers should engage with the local community before submitting their applications. And it also goes on to say, one of the core planning principles set out in the National Planning Policy Framework is that planning should empower local people to shape their surroundings. The National Planning Policy Framework also states that applicants should be encouraged to engage with the local community before submitting their applications. Sorry, can I just check how much time I've taken?
1.5 minutes left.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, it also goes on to state that the level of engagement should be proportionate to the type and location. So the type of the application, this is not a normal planning application. So if I miss an application for plastic windows, then I can just shrug my shoulders and say I should have taken more care. But this is a large battery and surely merits further consultation. And the location is very close to homes, and it's on the verge opposite the entrance to Moorview where lots of people live. So I decided to check the level of engagement by knocking on people's doors. I knocked on 27 doors. Most of these homes look out onto the proposed location of the battery. 11 of the people didn't answer or didn't have time to talk. I spoke to 16 people. Only one person knew about the planning application. So you can see how close it is to residential areas, and I'm very disappointed by the lack of consultation with people who live nearby. It would take less than half an hour to post a leaflet through 30 letterboxes, as I'm sure you know. Also, the joint local plan, this is just a final point, talks about this area of the town being creating a high quality gateway to the village, and that's for an allocated site just up the road. I don't really consider a battery box a high quality gateway. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. Any questions for Councillor Kimber? Thank you very much. Any debate, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Mott.
It looks like I'm starting this then. Applications like this always cause a dilemma because we have to consider them on their material reasons. However, I believe we also have a duty to the wider community on the decisions that we make because it impacts on them greatly. So while I appreciate that it might not be a material reason, I am struggling to understand the justification for this application because I don't see that anywhere within the paperwork that's been submitted. I've also got concerns over the impact of the structure on the entry and the exit to Hatherley because it is in a outskirts setting. And you can see from there, while I appreciate you've got houses on the right-hand side, it does present a rural setting for the edge of the town. And I appreciate Councillor Kimber refers to it for a village, but I'm sure many of the residents there consider it to be a town. I'm therefore struggling with this because as it sits, I don't feel that I can support this application because I don't feel that there has been enough justification for it. I'm concerned about the visual impact on the area, and I don't feel that the applicant has given sufficient reason for the siting for it to be there.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any comments? Councillor Wakeham.
I only want to support the fire and rescue service who say that best pose specific hazards in the event of fire that are still not fully understood or researched. Best practice to mitigate the risk from BESS is still in development. Therefore, it is a risk and the houses are very close. And also the visual impact. Hatherley is promoting itself as a place for people to come to shop and for holidays. This is going to have a massive detrimental look on the gateway to the town, which we would rather not have. So I will be opposing this application.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Guthrie.
I better be careful in case I get told off again. But I suppose I would like to think about electricity small substations and other electrical sort of large-scale power buildings, etc. And it does seem quite unusual to have something like this right on the edge of a road. So that's really my main consideration. And I'm just putting that out there.
I think what Councillor Guthrie is trying to say is there's a visual impact of the, which is perfectly permissible.
Councillor Moody.
I hear what people are saying about the visual impact in a village or town. If members were minded to approve, could a condition be added for some landscaping around the unit, if that it would satisfy people about the visual impact? Also, I do wonder whether the distance between the unit and the houses, if there were a fire, which is covered by a fire scheme, whether that distance is significant. From the photographs, it looked a considerable way away from the unit. So if the houses were much closer, I would have similar concerns of fire. But that's my concern, my suggestion, that if people are if members are concerned, whether landscaping could be an option.
So there is an option to put some landscaping. Clearly, one of the issues that relates to that is the visibility display from the entrance to the industrial estate. So there would be a need to balance that. And with regard to fire, obviously the fire service, we did consult the fire service because we felt it was appropriate, and the applicant will need to demonstrate to them that it is not a fire risk. And so by having a pre-commencement condition on the proposed approval, the applicant can do nothing until our fire service are not persuaded, but satisfied that it will not cause you can never say never, can you, about anything, but it would have to be robustly done in order for our fire service to be satisfied.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Jury.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously listened to the debate, and I'm listening very keenly to my colleagues and some of the concerns that have been expressed. But I'm struggling in my mind to think about that in terms of any planning consideration that we might refuse the application on. I suppose if one looks at Dev 20, that covers things like design and appearance. I mean, highways have not raised any issues, as I understand it, so we have our hands tied there. It seems to me there are not any environmental issues other than the potential fire issue, which will be addressed as part of the whole process. So I'm kind of struggling to find any material planning consideration, perhaps other than design and appearance, that we might refuse it on. I don't know if any of my colleagues have any ideas, but that's kind of where I'm struggling with at the moment.
Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Councillor Jory, for that. I think it's very helpful. I think as far as the visual impact is concerned, is that the conditions are to paint it green, so that's been addressed. And when we look around our roads, around villages and cities, we have mobile phone masts, mobile cabinets, BT cabinets. I know this is bigger, but I think personally for me it fits in with the general landscape of our modern society.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll take it to the vote then.
Chair, we haven't got a proposal on the table yet to vote
No,
on.
we haven't. Right, so the proposal is a conditional approval. Those in favour?
We haven't got a second now. Councillor Moody second.
Councillor Moody? Oh, right. Those in favour of approval?
That's 4 in favour of approval, Chair.
Those wishing to refuse?
Those against approval.
Sorry?
Those against approval.
Oh, those against approval, sorry. Wording's wrong.
Five against. The vote therefore is lost, Chair, by 4 votes in favour with 5 against.
Therefore, the motion fails. Permission refused.
So, Chairman, what we now need is a proposal setting out the proposal that's proposed and seconded, setting out the reasons why, and members will need to be very clear in their rationale and obviously refer to policies in the joint local plan to support that reason for refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbairn. Councillor Mott.
I propose that the application is refused based on the visual impact and concerns over the impact on residents. And while I appreciate that Mr. Fairbairn asks us to refer to policies in particular, I would have to disagree with him on that point, as we had our knuckles wrapped over referring to policy numbers when we were coming up with our reasons by PASS at their last review.
Chairman, it is beholden on the committee, before going to the vote, to identify the reasons for the proposal and to support those reasons with planning policies. Because after all, your decision has to be made in accordance with the development plan, unless other material considerations suggest otherwise. And in terms of what I've heard so far, I would ask members to elaborate on what the impacts are in terms of the visual impact and amenity. That would then provide a basis on which any refusal might be able to be defended. But until you've identified the harm, I think you are struggling. Simply saying you don't like the visual impact without saying more and why is going to leave us with a particularly weak reason for refusal. So I think ask members to expand and think carefully about why.
I just want to sort of reiterate, when considering the policies, you need to identify the harm that you feel. So what harm? So in visual impact terms, what is the harm? Is it harmful to the neighbours in a visual sense? Is it harmful to people driving past? Is it harmful to the general landscape? It's those sorts of matters that we need to include within our reasons for refusal.
Mr. Jury.
I'm kind of fishing slightly here, but if we would go to Dev 20, Dev 20 mentions specifically delivering landscape design that is appropriate to the location of the development, with full consideration given to its future management and maintenance and the need for landscape measures that are resilient. It goes on to say that the layout and details of new development should contribute towards high standards of community safety, and maybe that's an area that this causes us some concern. It also mentions enhancing the appearance of key gateway locations into Plymouth and the main towns. So I don't know whether any of those are aspects that we might want to consider, or if there's anything better anywhere else in the JLP.
You could use Dev 20 in terms of its in terms of the visual impact. I just wonder, whilst it is bigger than some of the substation type accommodation, for want of a better word, that we see around our areas, you know, some of those units and cabins are actually permitted development. So they can, so the electricity board or the gas board or whoever can put them up without referring them to the council. This one's slightly larger, which is probably why it's before us, but it's not massive. It's a, you know, it's a reasonable size unit. It's located on land with trees in the background, so the visual impact, I think, is probably less harmful than it could be. And I just want members to be very sure that this is the way they want to go with this one, on the basis that we've also, as a council, declared a climate emergency. And then, you know, there is a need for us to be thinking about, you know, this isn't going to be the first one. There will be lots more of these. And we do need to bear that in mind when we're making the decision. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Moody.
Just to give members a little more, the possible, well, not the possible areas are visual impact, amenity impact, heritage setting, insufficient landscape mitigation and fire risk. They're the only ones that I could see as possible reasons. But it's up to the members to decide.
I think there clearly is a dilemma for members here, and I can understand that. It's a new concept, if you like. I'm wondering if whether members would be satisfied with potentially with an adjournment, so that we can have a conversation with the applicant to talk about potential landscaping. But also, you know, it might, or members may feel that they want to defer the decision on the basis that they want further information. There's two options there that you could consider, members.
Councillor Moody.
Could I move an adjournment or a deferral? Is that for more information? I don't know whether that's suitable.
Chairman, a deferral will be appropriate, just because if you're going to be seeking a deferral to allow opportunities for further mitigation in terms of the appearance, then that might result in an amended plan. So a deferral is appropriate. If you want further information, then you will need to identify why or what that information is that you're asking us to obtain.
Councillor Mott.
I believe, Chair, I've already got a proposal on the table for refusal based on the visual impact of the wider amenity of the area.
I don't think it was seconded.
That question wasn't asked, Chair, but I did definitely propose.
Yeah, I didn't ask for a seconder.
I mean, I think what happened was that I asked for more detail in terms of the formal proposal and the policies that were being relied on, and also bearing in mind that we have no objection from the fire service in terms of fire risk, subject to the compliance with that pre-commencement condition about the fire safety management plan.
Councillor Vashon, you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Does that mean that the vote we've just taken is now null and void? That we're going to re-debate this again, or is that decision made now?
You're now in the realms of formulating your reasons for a proposal to refuse. Councillor Mott has identified the general principles. It's now a question of identifying what the harm is and explaining that harm as part of the reason for refusal.
Okay, do we have a seconder for Councillor Moody's motion to defer? Oh, sorry, Councillor Mott's refusal.
I think, Chair, if I can make this clear, my proposal is the refusal of the application based on the visual impact of the wider community and the impact on the entrance and the exit of a heritage town.
Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? Thank you. A vote, show of hands, please.
That's 5 in favour of refusal as per the reasons, Chair.
Thank you. Those against the proposal?
3 against. Thank you, Chair.
Any abstentions?
With 1 abstention. Therefore, Chair, that's 5 votes for refusal, 3 against and 1 abstention. And that motion is therefore declared carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next application. 4129/24 LBC. I will hand over the planned officer for a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask my colleague Bryony to assist with the slides. Thank you. If we could go to the map. Yes. Here's the site location plan. As you can see, the building fronts onto Banwell Street, but the application relates to windows on the rear elevation, which faces Lakeside. And there's just the usual Google. If we can move on to the view, yeah, the main vantage points are from Lakeside and from the viaduct. And so I've put in this photograph here to show the 3 windows that are to be replaced on this listed building. Next slide, please. And this is the rear view of the building. So the windows at the moment are PVC. They're unauthorised, but they've been in there for quite some time. The intention is to replace them with bespoke timber windows. There's also the issue of repairing the rotten lintel above the bedroom window, the one on the left below the guttering, which is failing and in danger of collapse. Next slide, please. So these are the plans as existing and as proposed. So the window will be ever so slightly enlarged, but that will return it to its original form, which is visible on the adjoining property. So an oak lintel is proposed to be put in place, and as I say, bespoke timber windows, which should be on the next slide. So there's a typical section. So we have single glazed traditional casement windows. The applicant has also said that they will be putting in secondary glazing to ensure that there's no reduction in thermal performance. So that's compliant with the building regulations when it comes to listed building situation. And the next slide. So these are the factors that are considered here. The application is before you today because the applicant is a member of staff. The effect on the listed building is that it's going to be positive. The effect on the Tavistock Conservation Area is that there will be an enhancement. The effect on the World Heritage Site is that there'll be an enhancement, and there'll be no reduction in thermal performance. So on that basis, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Questions, Councillor Moody?
Well, not a question. I'm sorry, I should have declared this earlier. I'm a neighbour of the applicant, but it has not influenced my decision. I still have an open mind. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody, any questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
aren't any speakers.
There's no speakers, so any debate on the matter?
Oh, Caroline's.
Councillor Moore.
Sorry, just one question, just for clarity, as I say that this, the reason why this has been brought before the committee is because the applicant is a officer of the council. Therefore, can you confirm, please, that if this application was from an ordinary member of the public, this would not have come before us?
Yes, indeed, that is the case.
Thank you. It was just for those listening in, Chair, that didn't understand the protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Leach.
If we're in debates, I think this is a positive improvement to this building, so very good.
Anybody else? I actually think it's an improvement as well, so. Okay, we'll move to the vote. Those in favour.
We haven't got a proposal on the table yet, Chair. To vote on. We haven't got a proposal on the table to vote on yet, Chair. We need a proposal and a seconder.
Okay. I'll propose that it's approved. Councillor Mott? All those in favour?
That's 9 and unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right. Okay. Over to Mrs. Houselander. Appeals updates.
Just bear with me, I'm just loading it on my machine. So today we've only got 2 appeals to discuss. The first one is an appeal for the boat shed, Pilgrim Drive, Beer Alston. It was a change of use of what was known as the boat shed into a domestic dwelling, including an extension. This is the site here. See it there? It's a very long, narrow site. A bigger view. There was obviously an existing building, and then there's a proposal to extend it. So this was the boat shed, and then this is the extension to it. Bit of a strange roof. So this was the original building, and then this was the extension, but it's the conversion of the building plus the extension, which was being asked to be considered. Pass that note. So, the inspector. So the application was refused on the basis that the development was incongruous with the surrounding development, which was bungalows and 2-storey dwellings slightly further away, as typical housing estate, and this site was obviously very thin and narrow, as I showed you. So that was one of the reasons for refusal. The other one was in relation to. Sorry, 1 second. It was also felt to be a very cramped form of development on a very narrow site. And lack of carbon reduction, and also no mitigation for the Tamar, SAC and SPA. The inspector came back and did agree with us that that he wasn't concerned about the single-storey nature of the development, because most of the other houses, some of the houses were bungalows around about, but he was concerned about the really narrow nature of the site. So he agreed with the fact that it would be contrary to the prevailing character in the area. And he also questioned the awkward ridge here, and that was quite an awkward join. So he wasn't very happy with that. He didn't, however, think that it was a harm. We'd originally indicated a harm to the national landscape, but he didn't agree with that. He felt that because it was within the village that there was no actual harm to the national landscape because of its location in the village. But he also agreed that there was no carbon reduction measures had been included, so he agreed with that reason for refusal, and he also agreed that no mitigation had been put forward for the Tamar EMS. So in general, he did agree with with the officer's recommendation for refusal. And the next appeal is land at Sawton. Brian, you might want to comment actually, because he was the officer originally that dealt with it. But this was refused. Well, there's a little bit of history to this one actually. So there was an original. So back in 2019, permission was granted for an agricultural building on this land in sort of this location. I'll show you shortly. And wasn't built fully. Some development had taken place on the site, but and it hadn't been completed. There was another application in 2023, which was refused on the basis that it was contrary to very similar reasons that have been put forward this time. And now we have this application which seeks to change the use of the agricultural barn, which isn't finished, to a commercial use. I think it was E3, B2 and B8, as I recall. So the reasons for refusal were based on there's no need for it to be located here. There is no need for a commercial development, whilst the applicant may feel there is. There was no planning need identified, and the economic benefits of having such a unit in this location did not outweigh the landscape and visual harm and the fact that it's in an isolated countryside location. The inspector agreed that it was in an isolated location. Sometimes they don't, so that was positive from our perspective. And he did acknowledge that there is some, through TTV2 and F15, there is some support for rural enterprises, to support the rural economy. But he felt that actually the isolated location and the unsustainable location were key in this consideration, and so he agreed with our recommendation. Dismiss the appeal. And that's it. Time for appeals. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Right, update on undetermined major applications, please.
It's just for note, if anybody's got any questions. If anyone has any questions about the undetermined majors, then please let me know. Yes, sorry. Some of the Section 106 agreements are progressing now. We're very near completion for the Lamerton, Green Hill Lamerton, Section 106.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? I hereby close the meeting.